On then. Everybody's ready but me. Welcome, City Council, to our work session here a little earlier today at 5:30 because we have 2 or 3 agenda items to go through, and we appreciate those who are residents that are here to observe, and we are always welcome. We appreciate it. Let's just make notice of who's here. We'll start down there with you, Kate.
Kate Bradshaw.
Chris Simonson.
Kendallin Harris.
Randy Lewis.
Richard Higginson.
And I would suspect that we will have Millie Barr here shortly. Because I haven't heard, no one's heard that she's missing at all, of her being ill or anything. Okay, with that, we're going to turn our time over to Councilman Chris Simonson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Lewis, members of the City Council and staff, in November 2016, a committee of Bountiful residents was formed by Mayor Lewis to look into the possibility of building a Veterans Park in Bountiful and where to place that park. Since then, the Bountiful Veterans Park Foundation was formed and presented to the council a dream to construct a Veterans Park in Bountiful, honoring all those who have served, are serving, along with honoring their families for their sacrifice to keep America free. The first 2 phases have now been completed, and the park was dedicated on November the 11th, 2020. Since then, the park has been visited by thousands of veterans and their families from all over Utah and this country. Many heartfelt stories have been shared. We are now entering into the final phase of what we call the dream. Eric Hadabaugh, who is the foundation president, will now present where we are in finishing the Bountiful Veterans Park. Eric, the time is yours.
It's actually the team of Hadabaugh and Hadabaugh tonight. You're going to get a little dose of both of us, but Mayor and City Council members and staff, we're grateful that we've been invited back again. It's been a few months since we've met with you, and quite a bit has happened, and quite a bit more is in the works. As Chris said, we began this, and I think you remember we had a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. And we have completed phase 2, which is that we have raised the funds and $1 million, and we have put Columbia, our main statue, in the center, and we've got all the monuments, well, most of the monuments that we originally had that are in there now. We have on order right now, and I think they're just being offloaded on the ship. From the ship, we have 3 more monuments that will be added soon, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. Well, in fact, let's go ahead and go to that, and I'll have Julie talk about those monuments. Yeah, go ahead and bring that up. Okay, all right. Okay.
So as he mentioned, we are completing phase 2, which is the last 3 monuments. And these monuments will be surrounding the military flags. And I just want to emphasize something that is in your packet. But I want to emphasize that everything that we've done in this park has been with great consideration and detail. We have not made any quick decisions on anything that we have done. And I'll just read this. It says, the monuments and statues are designed with much thought and consideration. Hundreds of hours of detailed research, design, and critique have been put into the construction of each monument. Intense thought has gone into the placement of titles on monuments and even the words that surround Columbia's pedestal. Each word was placed at its location with specific meaning and purpose in mind, which you may not know that. But there's a reason we put those words where we put them. There's a reason we're putting monuments in specific places. And there's a reason why specific depictions are on each one of these monuments. The size, the message, the placement, they are all special and one of a kind. Our decisions have and never will be quick decisions. So this military family monument, which again, we looked into this with great detail and we researched a specific picture. This is a family that you could consider either deploying a loved one or a loved one coming home. And you will notice also that we have tried to be very diverse in our monuments. So we have different denominational traditions. We have also different representation of, well, let's see, for example, this one is ethnic groups, this one is Latino, or it could be Hawaiian. It's kind of up to the individual to decide how they want to interpret it. And that's something that we did on purpose. We did it with the idea that it's subject to interpretation by the individual person. And they can broaden that however they want in their own mind and heart. Okay, do we have the next one? This one has really significant meaning, especially to us in this area. On the left, that is representation of a POW coming home, and does anybody know who that is? That's Jay Hess from Farmington. He's coming, that's the actual photo of him coming home, greeting his daughter for the first time. And that's pretty powerful. And then we researched on the right, that is a representation of missing in action. And if you'll notice, I absolutely loved the one on the right. I don't know if you know what Jewish tradition is, but rocks that are put on top of headstones or whatever are memorial rocks. And then there's also a rosary that's hanging down. And the words are so significant. It says, "In memory of veterans of the United States of America missing in action in all wars." And then I thought it was just beautiful how that little military flag, the Marine flag was there, and then the American flag on the right. And then that actual, the medal, the round medal thing is actually an American Legion insignia, so we thought that was somewhat appropriate. But we wanted to make sure that everybody was represented and that we as a community would never forget our POWs or our missing in action who have served not only this community but in our nation. Okay, the next one. This is a wounded warrior, and we actually have a very significant amount of people on our veteran wall who are Purple Heart recipients. And we had a lot of requests for people to have their Purple Heart recipients recognized. And so when we did the Wounded Warrior Monument, we decided that this would be really appropriate to have this emblem here on the monument. So on this one, you see a man of an ethnic descent shaking the hand of a wounded warrior. And then on the left is the Purple Heart Medal of Honor. So, okay. And then the last, okay, you can see there the original park view. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to read through the packet, but I really want to emphasize the spirit that comes into the park, and especially the emotion that comes. We've been there on a daily basis, and without a doubt, almost on a daily basis, people come and tears are shed. People are just so overwhelmed and overcome by the beauty of the park, but also by the representation of the park. And when they see their family, a family member's name, or they see the monuments, they are just so overwhelmed, and they are so appreciative. I've only had one negative comment in the hundreds of hours that I've been there and the thousands of people that I've talked about, and it was kind of a funny one. One lady didn't like the fact that Columbia was a woman. She thought it should be a man. So, anyway, that's the only thing that I'd heard. The experience coming to this park is, as I mentioned, is a very emotional one, and we have one particular family that visited the park and shared that due to a family conflict, they did not even know where their veteran brother was buried. And so this was the only memorial that they could come to and visit and pay their respects to him. And with that in mind, the last monument that we are wanting to put in, and it won't be before this Memorial Day, it will be by Veterans Day, is the dedicatory prayer. And I would like to share a little bit about the dedicatory prayer. It took a great deal of thought, agony to write it, because first of all, I wanted it to be non-denominational, and I wanted it to be from anybody's heart, or even simply a remembrance of, a prayer of the heart, or whatever would be significant to whoever read it or heard it. And so it was with a great deal of thought and introspection that it was written. But I want to share something with you. We are a family that has been in the military a part of the military for over 40 years. And there were many times when Eric was deployed into imminent danger, and sometimes I didn't know where he was. And sometimes it was a phone call, oh, the USS Cole just got bombed and they're sending us to the USS Cole, and I'll see you later and we'll talk soon, bye. He's been many times to places that are in conflict. As we speak right now, our son, his office that he goes to every day when he goes to work is Bagram Air Force Base, and he flies a spy plane looking for terrorists and looking for drug lords. So every day he is in imminent danger.
But just keep that in this room only.
Oh, yeah. Anyway,
That's
no,
top secret.
it's okay. So there is a prayer in our heart every single day for him. And I would imagine that you understand, especially if you have a military family member, that prayer in any form or fashion plays a very significant role in the life of military people. So I would like to just read this to you, if you don't mind. Our veterans' families and their unparalleled sacrifices continue to be a guiding force in every decision we make in this park. What would those who have sacrificed the most and even the ultimate for our freedoms be honored to see in this park? With those thoughts in mind, we strongly feel that the dedicatory prayer monument needs to be a part of this park. Prayer of any faith, denomination, or simply of the heart has always been an integral part of our country's military culture, as well as the culture of our community. Think about how many chaplains there are in the military. Consider the thousands of names on our veteran wall. Now consider the thousands of prayers that veterans uttered in foxholes, in planes, and on ships. Now consider the thousands, if not millions, of prayers uttered on behalf of those brave men and women over generations of time. We are a faith-based community. We need not hide from it. Rather, as we have spoken to many patrons, they highly embrace it. We want this monument to set the tone for the sacredness and reverence of this park. Thus, we feel that its placement front and center under the entrance sign at ground level is the appropriate and perfect location. So we've just kind of taken a little straw poll with some people and, you know, what do you think about a monument with the dedicatory prayer being here? And everyone, every single person, absolutely, without a doubt, there should be no question about that. And so with that in mind also, I'd like to just, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I would like to just read a couple of excerpts from, you've got a copy of the dedicatory prayer right here. Okay. And maybe as I read this, maybe you can think of it as if we're talking to those patrons who come to the park, okay? May this park be an inspiration to all those who visit from both near and afar. May it inspire others to learn and seek more understanding of the importance of our military veterans, those who have chosen to give service and sacrifice in defending this great nation's freedom, even at the risk of their own lives. Let's see. We ask thy blessing to be upon this park and its contents. We pray that thy protective care will watch over it. And then it goes on. And then this is the most important paragraph of all. We prayerfully ask that those who visit this park will feel a sense of peace and tranquility. May these hallowed grounds cause troubled hearts and minds to be healed. May this park help bring a sense of closure for those who have carried the burden of past conflicts and wounds. May it inspire many to reach for hope as they move forward in life, knowing that they, as well as their families, are loved, acknowledged, and appreciated for their service and sacrifice to our community and to our nation. Okay. So moving forward, we're going to talk about phase 3 a little bit here.
Let me just quickly go over, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this right here is a schematic of what it would look like.
It's going to be cleaned up a little bit. It's not exactly.
Yes, the wording is going to be fixed a little bit, but it will be in this form, split, and then it will be angled. So it'll be about a foot at the bottom. Again, it'll be on a granite, gray granite base, and then it'll go up and then to about 4 inches on top. Okay, so that you can see on the bottom the exact measurements, but that's what it would look like.
So it's easier to read.
Yeah. They when we took it to the monument company to look at it, when it was straight up, they just didn't think it would be that easy to read. So the angle helps that quite a bit. So that's how that would look. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the next slide.
Okay, in phase 3, from the beginning of the concept of the park, we have always had the design with 7 different statues. We actually had 8, but we've narrowed it down to 7. These statues are going to be very unique in structure and design. They're not going to be the typical war monument with a guy holding a gun, or, I mean, maybe one will, but we've already got some concepts that are just absolutely stunning and beautiful.
These aren't them. This is just
No, these are not them. What we are doing is we are going to the community and inviting them to submit renderings. And then from those renderings, we will have a selection committee with the foundation and determine which ones we'd like. Now, these statues are life-size, but they're smaller life-size. So they're about 5'6", 5'8". And if you go around the park, there's the rock area on the outside wall, and then you'll see the pavers around there. And it's all wired for lighting for the statue and everything. It's always been part of the design to have them. So if you go there right now, it kind of looks blank because they're not there yet. But with that in mind, any statue that we bring into the park, we will consider the aesthetics, we will consider the balance. We won't put one statue over here and nothing over here. We will make sure that everything is balanced and aesthetically pleasing as we finish those. And it's gonna take a few years to get everything completed. Right now, the next two monuments that will go in, and these are low-lying, like, oh, I'm sorry, I keep saying monument statue. The next two are going to be low-lying, and one is going to be a family monument, statue, sorry, and the other one is the Wounded War. Right now, we are, we're kind of repositioning things a little bit, because the last thing we want is anything to look cluttered, anything to look out of place, anything, I mean, we want everything to look like it's positioned at where it's supposed to be. And so we have some.
Can I
yeah,
ask a question?
Sure.
Could you go back on the slides to the one that has like the overview of the park? I think there was one right before this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you, the two that you just mentioned, where,
Where will they go?
yeah,
Yeah. And this is what we are,
You have the pointer.
do you have a little pointer or a little,
I can,
okay.
I
If you
can
want
go
to,
stand there if you will direct my finger.
I'll point to it.
Oh, I see. Here, yeah, sorry,
So, as you see right now, there's a monument there,
that's the wounded, that will be the Wounded Warrior Monument where he pointed.
and there's one there. This was the original design.
That's the POW, and that's the military family right in the middle.
Benches here that are here have gone to this side of that concrete walkway, facing the opposite direction. So there'll be another monument right here in the middle.
Statue.
Statues.
Well, there'll be a monument, a third monument that's not on here that will go there, and then a statue and a statue.
So like in the grassy areas.
Well, it won't be grass anymore, no.
Yeah.
It will be, it will be where grass is now, but it will be a walkway.
We're restructuring around there.
Okay, that's why I was
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah, right now, if you were to go over there, you would say, where in the world do you have room to put these? But we are restructuring how that's being laid out.
And both of those statues are already paid for.
Yeah.
And so then the 7 statues that would come over time, where the outer ring of benches are, those statues would sit behind those benches in the grass?
There's 5. There will be 5 close to the inner plaza.
They'll be right in, see this
Where
area
the
here?
bark ring?
There's actually statues there now. I don't know if you can
Okay.
see those. There's one here, one there, and 2 over at the.
They coincide with the monument. So for example, the War on Terror monument that is front and center right here, on the back side will be the War on Terror statue, where the World War I monument is. On the back side will be the World War I statue. Okay.
Thanks, I
So-
wasn't following where they were all.
Yeah, so really, in essence, to finish the park, we have all benches in. We're not gonna put any more benches in. And let me just say this about benches, because someone had said something about, wow, you have a lot of benches. Well, we did that because the community was desperately wanting them. And oh my gosh, the tears that have been shed when people come down and look at their benches is just amazing. And it's helped to build the park. And it will be really great when we have some big event there and people have a place to sit everywhere. So the benches are all done. It's just these last 3 monuments and then the 7 statues, and we'll be done. Okay.
And those benches are essentially monuments to some degree. I don't know if you've seen the Halverson bench, but that's, that pays tribute to him. So they're monuments.
Yeah, I don't know, again, if you've had a chance to read, but I listed a number of experiences that have happened in the park the people coming, and it's just really moving and touching. There's a little lady that comes and sits on her bench and just cries. It's her husband, honoring her husband, and she just loves to sit there and reminisce about him. So it's wonderful. Okay, let's see. We talked about representation in the park. I will say this about the Wounded Warrior statue. We're looking to have it, because we want it low-lying, we're looking to have it be some type of wounded warrior, not sure, kneeling, but with his dog at his side, maybe with his paw on his knee, but we want a service dog as part of the statue. We think that will be really unique and really special. And kids will love it, and I don't think we've said much about it in here, but we have an entire educational portion of our park that we've started, and our specialist, Kathleen Bailey, is working with all kinds of different organizations, and we're really looking to have a wonderful educational component of the park through QR codes. And so that will be great, that everybody can access that, and there will be stories. It will be stories of community members, veteran community members, and it will be, I think we were talking about 5 questions. Did you know about World War I? Did you know about World War II? So that students and schools and organizations will want to come and have an educational experience at our park. So,
Pardon me for interrupting, but we probably only have a couple of more minutes. Do you have enough, will you have enough time to finish up?
Yeah, in fact, I was going to see if you had any questions, and Doug is with me today, and Doug White, and he is willing to, if you have any questions about finances at this point, where we stand, he's our specialist, and we can talk about that if you have any questions.
Well, let me just say a couple of things here. First of all, this is an amazing project. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, and they are thrilled to have what we have. I think part of the reason that this has been so successful is we've had such great communication between you folks and the city. From the very beginning, the city council has endorsed your recommendations, or I'm not sure if we've had any that went back to you to be revised a little bit, but I would think here towards this third part of your design, that it would be still really important for us, for the council, to see those statues, to see them and where they're going to be, the cost of them, and basically, again, put our seal of endorsement on all the fabulous work that you've done. So I think, rather than I would expect probably not to have a vote tonight on where we're headed, but to give some counsel to come back with the details.
Right. And that's it. Every time that we get a design for a statue, we'll present it one way or another. We'll get it to you so that you can review that, and then we'll go forward from there.
So, council members, is this kind of what the direction you would like?
Sure.
Yeah?
Thanks for doing such an amazing job.
Yeah, I just think the prayer is, and the prayer is just so beautiful.
Well, just to remind you all, this is Chris Simonson's brainchild, and we're all just a group of nobodies just trying to put it together for him.
We don't want to do any brain surgery on him. We just.
But we've enjoyed it. We really have
Let's do the
enjoyed the
details.
experience, and there's been a lot. I mean, the community has really gotten behind it. Every city, we have had people get behind this, and we couldn't imagine that we were going to raise as much as we did. I mean, the hope was there, but when you really put pen to paper, you just wonder if it's going to happen, and it has.
Well,
And it will-
for
and
all
it
the
will
mayors,
continue.
for all the mayors to come here from all of the cities that are here for the
Right.
dedication says it all as far as the support that you have
Right.
for what you do.
You understand there's a Memorial Day program that we'll be doing?
Yeah,
Right.
and so we'll give you that. That will be out probably next week. You'll have that Memorial Day program.
So we'll let you go unless there's any,
Mayor, then, do we have permission to go ahead with the prayer
Prayer monument.
monument?
prayer monument, the one that we've seen.
You've seen.
That's-
You need to
that's-
vote
that's up
amongst
to the
yourselves.
council.
Yes, I think I would love to support that.
So could we
Is
have
that
a,
something we're to vote on?
Yeah, it's not, it
Yep.
wouldn't be a vote, it would just be give direction.
Yeah, to give direction.
I would, my direction would be to move ahead with that. My direction would be to move ahead with that.
Yeah, it wasn't originally in the plan, but so it's something that's added, and we felt like we need to get your approval, so. And we can get that ordered up right away. And just to let you know that on the 19th of May, the crane will be in your parking lot, and it will be lifting about 120 feet, 7,000 pounds at the back. There will be 2 new walls, veteran walls. We now have an additional, it was almost 2,000, nearly 2,000 names. And so there'll be the 2 veteran walls, and then there will be those 3 monuments up front that will be lifted in place on the 19th May. So,
Kate, you okay?
I'm comfortable, yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Millie?
Yes, I'm comfortable with that, and I apologize for my tardiness. My husband had some patients that ran late, and we had some problems corralling our children, so not that that's an excuse. That's
can't
just what
imagine how
happened
that works.
My children are old and I still have a hard time corralling them.
No kidding.
So,
So,
thank you very
thank you
much.
very much,
That gives you
yes.
direction,
You bet.
what you need?
Yes,
Okay.
that's perfect.
You come back with those statues and your
Right.
group that's putting that all together and let us see where you are.
Yeah, it's going out to all the arts councils in all the cities.
One last thing too, we are in very good shape financially right now, so we want you to.
Okay. We're not
But
surprised.
if anybody's here and has an extra 100,000, no, it's, but anyways, thank you all. We appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. With that, I'm going to turn time over to Brock Hill, and we're talking parks. Maybe maybe a little bit, Brock, for you and others, maybe a little bit of ground rules is that I think it's really important that everybody here speaks exactly their mind, exactly what they want to say about where we are with parks. At the same time, I think it's really important that those things that we give some advice to, that we certainly don't solve the problem for parks or for the city, but that we let them find the ways to come back to us to solve those. And we also, hey, this is a two-way street. We already know there's things you're concerned about with parks. It's not just us, right?
I hope
Brock?
so. I hope so.
All right. So with that, I'll turn time over to you, Brock.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I come before you tonight to discuss parks and parks maintenance. I hope you've had a chance to read the staff report, including the attachments that were with the staff report. I think the attachments give you a clearer or better understanding of some of the things that we're dealing with on a daily basis, some of the things that we're faced with in the Parks Department, and some of the solutions to those concerns. My first thing that I want to talk about is what your concerns are. From what I've been hearing and things that are obvious to me, things that you've said, things that I've heard, I would like to just point out, and maybe you can help me clarify that. And that's really why I'm here tonight. I need to understand from you your expectations about parks, what you expect to see in the parks. Because what has happened and what we're hearing are not necessarily a long ways apart, but there's some distance between, and I think we need to close that gap and make sure that we're all very clear on what your expectations are so that we can work harder to meet those expectations. Some of the things that I've been hearing are your concerns about how residents are addressed, or when residents call into the Parks Department, how are they handled, how are their concerns heard, how are their concerns addressed. One of them that I've heard of is turf health and the condition and the appearance of our turf in the parks. One is cleanliness of bathrooms. Another one is cleanliness of pavilions. And then also the condition of flower beds, the plant health, the type of plants that are in there, and the amount of weeds that you're seeing. So with that, that's my understanding of where you're at. I hope you can clarify with me further what those concerns are. If you feel like expectations are not being met, I'd like to know where and how those expectations have come to you. I think it's important for me to understand that so that we can address those things as staff. Also, I would like to know of any expectations that may be changing. If I don't hear about them, if the information isn't coming to me, I don't know how to address those. I don't know how to address those with my staff. I do have some staff members here with me tonight. We're lacking one. I don't know if you know everybody. Back there in the third row is Hal Conover. He's been with us almost 25 years. You want to just raise your hand as I call your name? And then we got Jason Miller. You all know Bruce. Right here is Jordan Horrocks. He's with us. Kim, she's new to us right just this year. Did you raise your hand? And then Gordon Kennington, he's back there on the back row. So that's our current staff. They're our full-time employees. They're our park maintenance supervisors. Each of them have different assignments. We're missing one tonight that we've hired recently. Her name is Camille, and she had previous duties tonight. So with that, I want to turn the time over to you. I want to have a frank discussion. I'm not afraid of hearing what you have to say, and I turn the time over to you.
Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I?
Yes,
jump
just,
in?
yeah, when you want to speak up, city council on this issue, just do so.
So on your list of some of the issues we've heard from residents, those do line up with those that I've kind of routinely heard from residents. I would like to maybe add one or make it a subpart of your first bullet point. I think there's the question of how to address, calls coming in from people who have, concerns. They've noticed something like a broken sprinkler, or they have questions about how to reserve things or how to do an event of some kind. So there's the questions coming in and how to make sure that those are timely addressed and they're getting responsive reaction. The subpart I would add is kind of the general communication with communities, and it can be the community at large, all of our residents, but also certain subgroups that are interested in a specific park use. So the example that comes to mind is, for instance, pickleball at Cheese Park. One of the questions I feel like I answer for people, a lot of the time is, why are the middle courts not up? What is the timeline to repair? Like I feel like I answer it a lot from the knowledge base I have about what the budgets are, what the reasons are for the courts. But it seems like there would be easier ways to make sure that certain user groups in broad areas could find that information faster, whether it's updating the parks website so that there are, when we have some type of a routine thing, like with pickleball, or, when the fencing goes up to protect the turf during mud season at the dog park, where those are like easy places where the public can go, and whether maybe they pushed out to social media, because I feel like probably a large volume of the calls that are coming into you are just this same question from everyone who cares about pickleball, or everyone who cares about the dog park, or everyone who wants to know what's up with the lights for baseball. And so adding that kind of subset to this general communication of how we do that, and whether it's through a temporary sign when an area is having a repair and will be closed for a certain amount of time that's actually at the place, or whether it's on the website, or whether it's social media, that would be a subset for me that comes up a lot.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, along those same lines, just a really quick comment is phone etiquette is so important. And I think it's particularly important in government because we're all used to calling government entities and having people be rude to us. And it's not that I'm saying that we have people that are rude to us, but phone etiquette is really, really important. I remember being director over to Orchard Cove and calling one night to talk to someone, and a nursing assistant answered the phone and said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, what I want is to call back in about 5 minutes and have you tell me your name and that you're at Orchard Cove and what you can do to help me." So I did. I called back in minutes. I think it's really important that Bountiful City portrays itself really well right from the very beginning. I think that we need a lot of patience. Basically, every employee of Bountiful City is a marketer for Bountiful City. There really are public relation for every single employee represents the whole city. So I think that's really important. I would even include that perhaps sometime that not just parks, but all the areas maybe have a little seminar somewhere just on public relations and phone etiquette.
Thank you.
Brock, I like the lists that you have presented and the things that you are working on. I know you've made some really good, you've made some specific plans about ways to address things that are wrong, and so I appreciate that. And I love that all these parks, I love these park staff being here. I just want to thank you for working hard in the trenches. I think, Bountiful Parks are the face of it all. Like, that's what our residents see, right? They see the flower beds, they see the parks, and so what you do matters. And I, Brock, am interested in the culture of your Parks Department. I hope that your employees feel valued. I hope that when they come to work, they feel valued and that they want to be there and that it's a really good, positive culture. And I think that's huge to retaining good employees and to having the best Parks Department we can have, right? So I really hope that's your experience. And if it's not, then I hope that we can talk about the culture of your department and make sure that it is a place where people feel valued, want to come to work every day, want to give it their best. So I think that's really important. Another thing that I think is important in your department, Brock, is I am assuming that some of the employees that work for you or yourself had to have certain accreditation or involvement with associations or had some background like that. And so do you mind just telling us if there are certain accreditations that we have in our city or some of your employees might have so that they have a certain level of education or training so that they're qualified and feel empowered to have the resources they need to do a good job?
Yeah, there's several things. One of the big things that our employees, two of them especially, and I expect another one to take advantage of, is the education reimbursement program that the city has. We have an employee currently doing that, working on his recreation. What are you working on, Jason? Community recreation. Yeah. And then Jordan, he finished a couple years ago? About 5. Yeah. He's got a degree in the same thing, so they're taking advantage of that. We also participate in 2 different professional organizations in Utah. It's the Utah Cemetery Parks Association, and then we also participate in the Utah Recreation Parks Association. So there's 2 different associations that kind of govern our industry, and we take active part in both of those. We go to their conferences, we go through their trainings. The other thing that our staff do, they are certified in most everybody. I think everybody's at least working on it in their pesticides applicators permit. We have our certified playground inspectors. We have 3 or 4 of those on staff right now. And we hope to have more. So we're actively involved in all of those things. And I tell them that, anything that they want to do, I'm big on education and training. And so we're trying. I hope you feel empowered. I hope they feel empowered to go out and find stuff. I know that Kim, she's recently been hired. She's going to start taking over the greenhouse, and we're going to get her trained and educated on those things. We have master gardeners on staff. My degree is landscape architecture, environmental science, so I feel strongly about our level of education in our department. And to me, that's one of the most important things, is to keep them trained, to keep them updated on maintenance techniques, on products, on whatever it is out there that keeps changing in our industry. We try to stay up on. So I'm comfortable. I hope they are. You would have to ask them that question though. So they're shaking their head. They're a quiet bunch. So
Got a thumbs up.
sometimes you have to get a whip out, but does that answer your question?
Yes, but I'm sure that as we evolve and as we continue down this path of continually trying to do better, I hope that you employees really do have that sense of being, taking pride in your work and being glad that you work here and seeing what your efforts, what a difference they make. And also just continuing to improve yourself so that you're contributing, and I believe you are. I'm sure you are, but I just think that's important. So, but I appreciate a lot of the plans that you have in place to keep improving. I think that's really good.
I did fail to mention we have a couple horticulturists by degree on staff, so I think we're well-rounded. When I do interview, we're going to be interviewing for another position here not too long. But when I do interview, I look for people who have skill sets that are different than what we already have, so that we have a broad range of knowledge. I think we could use somebody in turf maintenance and those things, and so I'll be looking at that. I think we're a little shy on our irrigation, to be frank, but there's certifications and all sorts of things we can get in that too, and I'm looking for those opportunities to get them out there. A lot of the stuff currently isn't available just because we're still in COVID, and hopefully that lightens up and they start offering those courses again. But yeah, we'll get there, and we're committed to continue to improve that way.
Rod, could I ask you a couple questions?
Yes.
I've probably the number one call that I get concerning parks is skateboarders at the parks. I was over at the town square here the last 2 nights, and there were skateboarders there, and they were skateboarding everywhere. And what?
Dogs.
And dogs, yes, that's true, and dogs, and dogs. There are signs there no skateboarding, no dogs. It's like it's being ignored. I don't know what we could do to increase it. Last night I talked with Shauna and she had 2 police officers come over. But the skateboarders saw him coming and he took off. And as soon as the police officer left, they were back. They came back. And that's not just the town square, but it's happening at other parks. So is there some way that we can address this with maybe the police department or so we could turn this around?
Yeah, we've dealt with that for a long time, and people say, well, more signage, more education, more this, and obviously signs don't work. They're just something for someone to ignore.
Could a police officer patrol more often, and especially maybe towards night at these parks? What time do the lights go out at the parks?
11,
11, see,
Yeah.
and most of us older folks are in bed at 10,
yeah.
and those skateboarders are clanging, banging, and that from 10 to 11.
Yeah, I hear you, Councilman Simonson. I struggle with this every day on how to deal with it, how to address it. Obviously, my staff can't be there 24 hours a day, and so this is gonna have to be something that staff, that Gary, that Lloyd, that Chief Beeler, and maybe planning get in on, and we all try to come up with a solution how to address this. I think once we give them somewhere to go that's designated as that activity, I think we'll see a drop in that. That's been my experience in the past. The solution, it's just gonna be getting the community to understand that this isn't where you play. How we get that message out is gonna involve some of what Kate said, I think. But that's a solution and a plan that I think Lloyd and I and Gary and Ed Beeler will have to come up with and then present to you to see if you're good with it.
I think you should involve Chief Ed.
Yeah, for sure,
I think a police presence says more than a sign.
absolutely.
If they're going through those parks and letting the young men and young women know that, this is not appropriate.
Yeah, as staff, in our staff meetings, I instruct our staff that if they're seeing those kinds of behaviors, they need to chase it out. They need to open their mouth and say something about it, and they've been better. I think, that's one thing that we've been focused on is help those people in the parks that are offending whatever the rule is of the park, that we need to help them understand that there's behaviors that are accepted and behaviors that aren't. And we're addressing those as we see them. But you're right, it's gonna take more than just my staff to solve this, and Ed Beeler has to be a big part of that.
I spoke to a young lady last night who had her child there, and she says, I'm fearful to bring my child to the town square because of the skateboarders. And I think that may be a concern of mothers with smaller children.
Understood.
Can I make one other comment about the town square?
Please,
I notice a lot of cracks in the cement.
yeah.
Are these going to be sealed? What's the
I'll leave
approach
that up
there?
to Lloyd to answer.
We had a pretty extensive walkthrough at the town square earlier in the year and identified many of those areas of concern. As we reach the end of the warranty period with Hogan, we'll be working with them to address those.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I just make one other comment and I will be quiet? Millie, I saw you smile.
Yes, that's a smile.
Brock,
Sir,
do you feel the last 2 years our parks have kind of gone down in maintenance and appearance?
I do.
Thank you. And this is what we're addressing, right?
Yes.
Thanks, Brock. Appreciate you.
Thanks for being here, Brock, and
Sure.
to all of the staff. And thanks for your write-up. I have just a few questions, starting with the employee assessment. Quite a bit of it was dedicated to your busiest months, which I, in my brain, kind of qualified as opening for the season and closing for the season. And so I guess my first question is, more or less, how many weeks does it take to open for the summer? And how many weeks does it take to close for the summer? Because in my mind, that's the time when it's boots on the ground, right? Everyone's out, and so there's really not much room for it sounds like for legislative or administrative work, excuse me. And so are those times when we might need to pull from other departments to cover phones or things like that? So I guess, how many weeks are dedicated to that? Is it completely mainly April and May, solid, those 2 months? And then same with closing for
Okay.
the winter? Am I correct in interpreting it that way?
Yeah, lots of times we'll bleed over into June, and lots of times we'll bleed over into November.
And that's
So-
essentially going, do you do each park one by one? Maybe just, if you wouldn't mind giving me a little big picture.
Okay.
How that kind of works.
Okay. Yeah, so in April, May is when everything starts opening. And it's not just about the water in the irrigation systems, but it's also cleaning and maintaining and fixing any problems in the bathrooms as we open them and start coming out of winter, possibly with broken pipes or whatever. It also includes aeration and fertilization in the parks. It's when we're growing, planting flowers. It's when we're prepping flower beds. It's when we're starting to hire staff. It's when we're starting to maintain shrubs and trees and bushes as everything comes out of the winter. It's about cleaning up all of the winter debris in the parks and in the parking lots on Main Street. It's all of that stuff. On top of all that, we're still picking up trash. We're still addressing those issues because people are still in our parks, especially with the addition of Town Square, where it's almost a year-round park now. And with skaters there in the wintertime, with Fizz there in the wintertime, that park has really not ever slowed down, other than the mowing, right? The grass is starting to grow. We're starting to mow. We're starting to have to string trim and edge. So it's a full-on barrage in that spring from April when weather starts breaking and grass starts growing to June when we have all of our full-time staff on. So we'll start picking up staff now. We have about 5 or 6 on right now that are coming back from school. They're off track at their colleges. But we won't get the bulk of that group until middle of May. And then we don't get the bulk of the high school kids until middle of June. So here we are from April to middle of June having to do everything with a short staff. So that time is about 6 to 8 weeks. In the fall, it's the same thing. So we start losing kids back to school the 1st of August, and by end of August, everyone's gone. And then we're just back down to our permanent staff to finish out the year, which we mowed grass clear into December this year. And so it's still mowing grass. We don't have water, obviously, but in the middle of that, we have to shut down bathrooms and shut down irrigation, but we still have all of the other things. It's flower cleanup, it's bed cleanup. We're still dealing with Main Street. We're starting to put in Christmas lights now, right? So in the fall, it goes from about middle of August to whenever grass stops growing in November recently. So those 2 seasons in the middle of the month, in the middle of December or the year, we're good. We have lots of staff on. I appreciate the comments by Councilman Higginson and, you know, in our budget meeting, and it helped me understand some of the other things that are going on out there, you know, with seasonal staff standing around. Well, we'll address that, right? We've got plans in place to address that. That will help us in the summer months to do a better job. I hope with the addition of these 2 full-time employees, we can solve the majority of the issues in the shoulder seasons, spring and fall.
Thanks, and that leads as a segue into my next question about the 2 new employees. I'm just curious to know, for my own understanding, when was the last time we added staff to the Parks Department? Full-time,
I don't know that answer, not since I've been here.
not since you've
That
been
was
here.
7 years ago. So how long before then? You were the newest?
No, I was in new position. It was an open position. We haven't ever increased employees for
You haven't added to the roster?
5 years.
Yeah.
25 years,
Please.
give or take.
Well, at least we haven't added any new park space. Right?
Thank you, that's helpful to know.
So you know, along with that, and maybe now's not the time, but I'd really like to tell these guys, you know, how much I appreciate what they are doing. It feels insufficient, it feels lacking, it feels like we're not doing everything we should be, but it's an overwhelming deal when you're dealing with 45 acres on your own to try to maintain. So they're out there giving their all every day. And so it's been a hard and stressful challenge for them. I think with the addition of these two new, you'll see better.
Can I ask a kind of a follow-up on this line of questioning about staffing?
Please.
You know, I raised this, for those that aren't on the Parks and Recreation Budget Committee, I had raised a question that I didn't necessarily want an answer to, didn't feel like we needed an answer to right away about kind of your organizational chart and the number of direct reports that come into you. And I think that it speaks to some of maybe our challenges with getting that communication balance right. But with Councilwoman Barr's line of questioning, it also makes me want to ask a question that isn't to be solved tonight and that is for you and Gary and maybe Shannon to think about is, are we still well served by relying as much on the college and the high school work group? If we're able to meet our demands with those part-time employees during the summer, then that's great. But if our shoulder seasons are causing us so much grief, are we better off thinking of a different structure for how we hire and when we hire, and whether they stay on year-round and during other months they're shared with streets for snow plowing or something like that, so that those shoulder seasons don't become so overwhelming for our permanent staff and don't start us in a deficit and leave us in a deficit at the beginning and ending of each season. So that is not necessarily a question in need of answer as much as I would love for some analysis later with Gary, with Shannon from an HR perspective, from your team on have we relied too long on just the college and the high school part-time help we can give or get. I guess we're not giving them, we're getting them.
Yeah, I've tried a couple things previously that just haven't worked out. Doesn't mean that wouldn't work now. But yeah, absolutely. I think it would, there's a few factors there that might come into play. Budget is obviously one. Availability of who's out there in those times is another one. I just haven't had a lot of response when I've reached out earlier than that, to different groups. We have an older group of employees up at the golf course, and I've begged them to share our need for help in those seasons with their friends, and no one's interested. But that's not to say there's not a solution. There is, I'm sure. What that is, we need to look at.
Yeah, I'd be curious if in creative budgeting, if we were going to hire, 4 part-time people for the summer months, but what we really need is, 1 more permanent team member, if you could, use the same pool of dollars, but allocate the people differently, or if there's, better sharing opportunities between any of the other departments where Parks is only bearing their salary for 4 months of the year to help with shoulder seasons, and then they're moved. So that's, like I said, not to be solved tonight as much as I just continue to want to think about that.
Lloyd and I and Gary have talked about that at length in going through this and analyzing all of the issues. I'm hiring people now that have training, have certifications in other fields like water, so that individual could go help in the water department with their breaks maybe with just checking the PRVs and all that thing, all that stuff that the water folks get overwhelmed with. So we're starting that process to look for cross-trained individuals already, so that we can share them with other departments. So that's where we're headed anyway.
Thanks.
Just throwing this out there, this just came to my brain. Have we ever explored the opportunity of internships with college universities?
We have one right now.
Okay,
Yeah, that's one of our early ones. She's a horticultural student,
okay,
and she's been here for a week, so.
awesome. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And is she considered temporary or?
She is a seasonal employee, so she'd be a paid intern, but yeah.
So Brock, we've dumped a lot of stuff on your department over the last few years, and we haven't given you a lot of additional resources. And I want to say that we talked a little bit about it at the budget committee meeting, but we're committed to holding up our end of the bargain, I guess I should say, in giving you the resources you need to take care of those properties. Of course, Gary Hill will be the check and balance on what the council might be willing to fund employee-wise, but we understand that we've burdened you with a lot, and we're hoping that we can find a good balance that everybody's comfortable with in adding to your resources as well, so that you can handle that. Over the years, first of all, I'm going to be really blunt, and I don't mean this to be hurtful, because I know that you're a man of many talents, and you've handled things with grace and ability that many would not have, including issues at the golf course and other things. You do a great job with almost all of your job. But I think that if there's a blind spot or a lack in your skill set, it's that you just don't appreciate pretty flowers enough.
You love trees.
I'll work on that. Yes, I do.
Here's what would take 8 out of 10 phone calls off of my call list. If you can find somebody who is so obsessive about making our flower beds beautiful like they used to be, those calls go away. And that's off your plate too.
Understood. Thank you.
So sincerely, 2 years ago, I was less sure about you and Bountiful City. Sincerely. I didn't know. And now we've seen you perform again for those 2 years and handle some really difficult things. And you juggle so much to do with the scheduling of team sports and all this other stuff that would drown other people without batting an eye. But I think the one weakness that still remains is you still need that flower bed eye looking towards keeping those beautiful. Because that's, lots of people look at grass and they see a crescent of dead grass or whatever. Most people don't care about that. But almost everybody driving past the flower bed or driving past the bountiful bush, they notice those things. And those are the things that either give people a sense of pride or give people a sense that, Bountiful just doesn't give a crap anymore. So that's my criticism. And my congratulations for all you do well also.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that.
Can I make another comment about that? I appreciate what Richard said, because it's true, Brock, that that you don't have to have all of the strengths, because nobody's perfect, nobody does, but you do a lot well, and but it is it's actually I think one of your problems is that you do take on a lot, and so then there needs to be delegation in order for you to be successful. And I think that's been kind of one of your things, is that you've taken so much on yourself, like, oh, I'll get back to those people, I'll get back to those people, I'll do this, I'll do that. And so I think while you're a man you work really hard, but sometimes delegating is working smarter, not harder. And so I do hope that you do feel like your staff is capable and you can trust them to give them things, so that you don't feel like you have to take it on all yourself. And it's great if if flowers isn't your favorite thing, then it's perfect if there is someone else who loves it. But I think that too, with the customer service, I think if there's someone on your staff that is really good with customer service, or who would be happy or able to handle that, that would be nice. If you could also delegate that, so.
Okay.
So just a couple more minutes, council. Is there anybody that has something they just are dying to say before we end, please?
One other thing I wanted to
Please,
say,
Richard.
this was a lot of work
Yeah,
and a lot of detail.
yeah.
And I mean, it kind of stinks for you to have to have gone through this whole thing and put the effort into it. But let us know what we can do to help the plans become a reality. I mean, we've burdened you, now we need to equip you. So sincerely, thanks for all the work in putting this together and for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was educational for me because it helped me see our deficiencies and know where I need to ask. Not only for help from staff, but from you as well. And I hope they do. I hope they understand the support that you're willing to give and have given in the past. I don't question that at all. You've been very supportive of me, of our department. I think we have a better understanding as to where we need to improve and what we can do better.
Well, Brock, since Kendall and I have come to the council this in our 8th year, there isn't a department that's had as many, it seems like everything that we've added, every big thing that we've done has been parks. It's been amazing. So I think this council's all said it really, really well. And with a great deal of appreciation for what you're doing, just want to encourage and let us help in ways that we can, because I think Richard really makes the point. We have to put up or shut up. So that's where we are with the council. Well, we need to help you.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all. That was really, really good of you to all come. I agree. Thanks. And so I'm going to turn time over to Clint. He's going to give us the COVID update.
Thank you, Mayor.
Since Gary's been exposed.
And so I'm going to remove my mask as part of this conversation. As you're all aware, there's been some changes with regard to state guidelines and some county and potential county guidelines regarding COVID policy. And we just wanted to get the council's direction on how to proceed regarding COVID policy with regard to whether or not employees are wearing masks are required to wear masks while we're here at work, and so on and so forth. So we and just to give you the latest that I'm aware of, the county recently met and had discussions about this, and they have opted to kind of maintain status quo as far as masks go in public buildings. We met as a management team and had a considerable conversation regarding, Gary wanted to give, there's some wind.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you can see that light moving back there. Gary wanted he wanted staff and then the management team to give a recommendation for you, and then hear whatever direction you gave us. So what it really came down to is we considered all of the interactions that we have as staff, all of the time that we spend together here in City Hall and our other buildings.
Clint, this is just the city we're talking about. We're not
Just the
talking about
city.
residents.
Just the city.
Yeah, I just wanted to make,
Just the city, just staff, and what happens within our buildings.
right.
Thank you for that clarification. And, we considered the thoughts and feelings and opinions of all of our employees in our departments, and have come up with the following policies for your consideration. The first two is kind of our recommendation. The third is where we're really looking for input from you. As you know, we looked at everything from the one end of the scale is masks all the time, no matter what, and the other end is no masks, we don't care. And as a management team, we felt that there was a nice solution that would work well for us regarding the use of masks in City Hall, and this would be as follows. Regarding employees in the private and and office spaces, in other words, the non-public areas of City Hall. Staff, our department heads, management team recommended that masks not be required by staff members when we're just out and about with each other. We spend a lot of time with each other, in close proximity to each other. When we don't have masks on, we're very conscious of social distancing and how others might feel about those things. So our recommendation would be that masks are always permitted. Anybody that wants to wear a mask could wear a mask, but that we would ease up the regulations as far as when you're in your office, when you're in when you have somebody else in your office, or when you're in a small meeting in one of the conference rooms, that masks are not required when it is staff only. The second one would be with regard to public. In the public spaces, the most common example we see of that is somebody coming in to pay a utility bill. In that case, it was our feeling that we would maybe leave some signage out that would say something to the effect of masks are appreciated or recommended but not required of the public. But that any of our employees that are having public interaction, for example, the tellers in the treasury that are taking money, that they would still wear masks when interacting with the public. And then the third one is where we want the most input from you, and of course need the most input, and that would be with regard to public meetings such as the meeting we're in right now. A couple of things to consider with that is that if we're already going to, if the council supports the recommendation of masks are not required amongst staff when we're just in staff in our places, non-public places, that it might not be required in a public meeting because, as you can see, we've got more than 6 feet distance between us and the public. But we were sensitive to what you might think about that and what you want with that. So we're really looking for some direction with regard to the public meeting standpoint, especially, but with all of this and whether you support it or not. So with that, I'll turn it to you.
May I?
Please, Richard.
So my first thought is this: our commission and committee meetings, all except for this meeting, typically fall far short of the 50-person threshold that state worries about now. My recommendation would be that we invite all of our planning commission back in person, our power commission back in person, and again, give those folks who are comfortable wearing masks the option to wear masks. If folks are comfortable not wearing masks and can social distance, then we ought to allow them that opportunity as well. I really am comfortable with the plan that you have laid forth as you did, and think that it would be advisable to us to move to that immediately.
Thank you. One thing on that, Councilmember Higginson, just, you might not be aware, our planning commission is meeting in person, all members. We have for quite a while now. I think there might have been 1 or 2 meetings where somebody had to attend remotely because of quarantine. But I think we've pretty much had our planning commissioners in person for several months now.
Yes, we have always provided an option for people to attend via Zoom until we came back to this building, and we're still working on challenges for Zoom here. But we've invited commissioners to attend in person, and they have.
Beautiful. We'll extend that to the Power Commission as well then.
I think that's pretty well said. Any other comments about it? You got anything?
I agree with Councilman Higginson. I agree with the way that you have laid it out, and I think in this area, I think it's pretty obvious that the three of us are comfortable, but we understand that not everyone has that same comfort level, and so I think if it's 50 or under, and if there's an opportunity to social distance, then I think that's appropriate, and I'm comfortable with those guidelines. And of course, if people feel the need and want to wear a mask, then of course they should. So thank you for laying that out.
Yeah. Anything else? I would just, so with your blessing, Gary and I will put together a memo for staff just to outline these in a little bit more detail, but outlining those things we've talked about there. Just so I'm clear, with regard to staff in public meetings, your direction is masks not required by staff, at least when we're up here at the dais. Okay. And then just one other thing that you're aware, that, you know, it was also our management team recommendation that we will be very supportive. We recognize that there are strong opinions on both sides, and that we would be very supportive of all employees, regardless of which side of that, of this issue they fall on. We would be supportive of those that want to continue to wear masks, and those that don't want to wear masks, we're also supportive of. And we would make sure to communicate that to our employees. Okay?
Just as a question, do you know what a percentage of our 200-plus employees have had vaccinations? Do you have any idea? I think I heard that the police are over 90%.
Yeah.
But, and I'm sure none of the other probably none of the other departments are quite there. Brock, do you know how many in your department?
We're probably 60%.
60%. So, I mean, this is going to increase and certainly decrease the opportunity. So it sounds like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah. One other thing that I failed to mention is with regard to meeting with public in conference rooms and so forth, it would also be our recommendation that if somebody comes in with the public and they ask to take the mask off, we are fine with that as staff. And basically by agreement, if there's, for example, Francisco and I met with 2 developers yesterday in a conference room. We walked in, they asked, do you care if we remove your masks? We didn't have a problem with that. We spaced out appropriately, and we would, with regards to interactions with the public, if it's by agreement, we would do that as well. But just in general, we would say that we would recommend, or masks are appreciated by the public, but that we were not interested in employees telling members of the public to put masks on.
Are you good, Clint?
I'm good.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break and we'll be back for our regular council. Thank you. Yeah. Feels like we've already been through a council meeting. Feels like we're doing a double header.